Hello, and thank you for being here at Infidelity Tales Lab. Your presence makes sharing these stories worthwhile. Tell us, where are you tuning in from today? Big city? Small town? Share with us in the comments. Now let's dive into today's story. Chapter 1. A Family Dinner Gone Wrong. Aaron Mathis adjusted his tie as the butler announced dinner was served. The Mathis estate's dining room buzzed with quiet conversation, silverware clinking against fine china. His wife Nina sat across from him, her red lips curved in that perpetual smile that once captivated him but now made his jaw clench. At the head of the table, Roy Mathis cleared his throat. The conversations died instantly. Aaron's father commanded attention without effort, a trait Aaron had studied and mastered in his own way. Roy's steel-gray eyes swept across the gathered family members, lingering briefly on Nina before settling on Aaron. Before we begin our meal, I have an announcement to make. Roy's voice carried the weight of decades of authority. After careful consideration and numerous discussions with our legal team, I've made a decision regarding the future of the Mathis estate. Aaron maintained his neutral expression, though his fingers tightened imperceptibly around his water glass. He'd built his own empire in silence, away from his father's scrutiny. 10 successful real estate developments across 3 states, each one acquired through careful manipulation and ruthless negotiation. The Mathis estate was worth a fraction of his hidden wealth, but it was about principle, about legacy. The estate, in its entirety, will pass to Nina. The words hung in the air like poison. Aaron watched Nina's face, noting how she managed to appear both surprised and humbled. A masterful performance. She understands our legacy more than you ever did, Aaron, Roy continued, his tone carrying years of disappointment. The way she's helped modernize our charitable foundation, her dedication to preserving the family name. I agree completely, Bernadette Graves, Aaron's mother, interjected. She reached across to pat Nina's hand. It's for the best, dear. Aaron took a slow sip of water, using the moment to study Glenn McIntosh at the far end of the table. The family friend wore an expression of polite interest, but Aaron caught the flash of triumph in his eyes. Glenn had been visiting more frequently over the past year, always finding excuses to be near Nina, always ready with business advice for Roy. Thank you, Roy. Bernadette. Nina's voice trembled with practiced emotion. I'm honored by your trust in me. I promise to uphold everything the Mathis name stands for. Dinner proceeded with forced normalcy. Aaron participated in conversations about local politics and business ventures, all while cataloging every subtle glance between Nina and Glenn. He'd learned patience in his rise to power, the art of waiting for the perfect moment to strike. After the plates were cleared, Aaron found Nina alone in the library. She stood by the antique desk, typing something on her phone. The screen reflected in her eyes as she looked up at his approach. Quite the performance at dinner, Aaron said, his voice low and controlled. Tell me, how long have you been working on my parents? Planting seeds of doubt, playing the perfect daughter-in-law. Nina slipped her phone into her pocket, her stance relaxed but ready. You never cared about this family, Aaron. You've always been too busy with your mysterious business trips, your secret meetings. Did you think no one noticed? You're manipulating them. I'm protecting them. Nina stepped closer, her perfume carrying notes of jasmine and deceit. From what? I'm not sure yet, but I've seen how you operate, Aaron. The way you destroy anyone who stands in your way. Your parents deserve better than that. Aaron's laugh held no humor. And you're better? You and Glenn, a flicker of something? Surprise? Concern? Crossed Nina's face before vanishing. Glenn is an old friend of the family. Nothing more? We both know that's a lie. Aaron moved toward the door, then paused. Enjoy your victory, Nina. It won't last. Later that night, in his home office, Aaron logged into the encrypted email server he maintained for sensitive business. A notification caught his eye, a forwarded exchange between 2 addresses he'd been monitoring. He opened the first message, from n.o.matthews@securemail.com to gmcintosh.private@securemail.com. Subject, estate plans. G. Roy made the announcement tonight. Everything went according to plan. Once the transfer is complete, we can begin divesting the non-essential properties. I've already identified buyers for the vacation homes and the commercial buildings downtown. The core estate will fetch a premium from developers. A estimates the total value at $50 million. That's enough to disappear comfortably, wouldn't you say? And Aaron read the response from gmcintosh.private@securemail.com to n.o.matthews@securemail.com. Subject: estate plans. Brilliant work, love. I never saw it coming. He's too wrapped up in his own schemes to notice ours. But we should move quickly once the transfer is complete. He's dangerous when cornered. I've set up the offshore accounts. 2 weeks after the papers are signed, we'll have everything liquidated. Then it's just us, a beach in the Maldives, and no more pretending. Gee. Aaron closed his laptop, a cold smile playing at his lips. In his early days of building his empire, he'd learned the importance of information, of patience, of letting your enemies think they've won before destroying them completely. He picked up his phone and dialed a familiar number. Derek? Clear your schedule tomorrow. We need to talk. Chapter 2. Shadows of Betrayal. Nina Ortega paced her private study, Glenn McIntosh's words echoing through the speaker of her encrypted phone. The documents are perfect, he assured her. Even an expert would have trouble spotting the forgery. Once we present them to the board, Aaron's reputation will be destroyed. She ran her fingers over the manila envelope on her desk, containing meticulously crafted evidence of Aaron's supposed embezzlement from the family business years ago. Bank statements, transfer records, offshore account details, all fabricated. And you're certain it can't be traced back to us? Nina asked, though she already knew the answer. Glenn's connections in the criminal world had proven invaluable. Positive. The paper trail leads through 3 defunct companies and ends at a dead man's door. By the time anyone could unravel it, we'll be long gone with the estate's assets. Nina smiled, remembering Aaron's cold fury in the library. He'd always underestimated her, dismissed her as nothing more than a trophy wife. He never suspected she'd spent years studying him, learning his methods, preparing to turn them against him. Perfect. She stopped as a notification lit up her phone screen. Glenn, I have to go. Aaron's requesting a meeting with the family lawyers tomorrow morning. Be careful. He's planning something. Let him plan. We're too close to let him ruin everything now. Across town, Aaron sat in a dimly lit restaurant booth across from Derek Avila. They'd known each other since prep school, but where Aaron had chosen the path of ruthless business, Derek had channeled his cunning into law. Now, decades later, their partnership had proven mutually beneficial. Glenn McIntosh, Derek said, sliding a thick folder across the table. You were right about him. His past is very interesting. Aaron opened the folder, scanning documents that detailed a pattern of land grabs, forced evictions, and suspicious accidents befalling property owners who refused to sell. Tell me more. 3 years ago, he was involved in a development project in Arizona. Small town, valuable land. The owners refused to sell. 2 weeks later, their properties burned down. Insurance investigators found traces of accelerant, but the case went cold. Derek leaned forward, lowering his voice. The same pattern appears in Texas, Nevada, and New Mexico. Different names on the paperwork each time, but always leading back to shell companies connected to Glenn. Enough to prove it? Not yet, but I have contacts in those jurisdictions. Give me time, and I'll build an ironclad case. Aaron nodded, memorizing key details from the documents. Time is something I have plenty of. Nina and Glenn think they've won. That makes them careless. Speaking of careless, Derek said, my sources tell me they're planning to move against you. Something about financial fraud allegations. Let them try. Aaron's voice carried absolute certainty. I've spent years documenting every transaction, every deal. They'll find nothing but dead ends and false trails. The next evening, Aaron attended a charity gala at the city's Natural History Museum. He moved through the crowd of society's elite, playing his role of the dutiful son while observing Nina and Glenn's subtle interactions across the room. A brush of hands here, a meaningful glance there. They thought themselves clever, but to Aaron's trained eye, they might as well have been shouting their affair. They're not as subtle as they think they are. Aaron turned to find a woman in a midnight blue dress, studying him with sharp intelligence. He recognized her from news bylines. Meredith Carey, the investigative journalist known for exposing corruption among the city's powerful. I don't know what you mean, Aaron replied smoothly, but his interest was piqued. Please. Meredith took a sip of champagne. I've been watching them all evening. The way they communicate without words. How they maintain careful distance except for those brief, accidental encounters. I'm curious why you haven't exposed them. Perhaps I'm waiting for the right moment. Or perhaps you're planning something more elaborate. She handed him her business card. I've been investigating Glenn McIntosh for months. His real estate dealings have left a trail of destroyed lives and suspicious accidents. If you're interested in comparing notes, call me. Before Aaron could respond, Nina appeared at his side. Her smile was perfect, her tone pleasant, but her eyes blazed with warning. Darling, the Hendersons were asking about you. Shall we? Aaron excused himself, noting how Meredith watched their departure with keen interest. Another piece on his chessboard, perhaps? Later that week, Nina cornered him in his home office. She dropped a folder on his desk, her confidence radiating like heat. I thought you should see these before they become public. Aaron opened the folder, examining the forged documents with genuine admiration for their craftsmanship. Bank statements showing systematic theft from company accounts. Emails discussing money laundering, all expertly fabricated to appear genuine. Impressive, he said, closing the folder. How long did it take to create these? Nina's triumph faltered slightly at his calm reaction. They're not created. They're proof of your crimes. The board will receive copies tomorrow unless you agree to step aside completely. No fight over the estate. No interference with my decisions moving forward. Aaron stood, moving around the desk until he faced her directly. And if I refuse, then I'll destroy everything you've built. Your reputation, your business relationships, your standing in society, all gone. Nina held his gaze, her conviction absolute. Your choice, darling. You've thought of everything, haven't you? Aaron's voice carried something that might have been admiration. Very well. I'll need time to get my affairs in order. 24 hours. Not a minute more. After she left, Aaron reached for his phone. First, he called Sam Pugh, the private investigator who'd helped him bury evidence of his more aggressive business tactics over the years. Then Derek to set specific plans in motion. Finally, Meredith Carey. Ms. Carey? About that conversation we started at the gala. I think it's time we had a proper discussion about Glenn McIntosh's business practices. The game was entering its next phase. Nina and Glenn thought they'd backed him into a corner, never realizing they'd walked right into his trap. Chapter 3. Building the Web. Sam Pugh adjusted his maintenance worker's uniform, nodding to the security guard as he entered Glenn McIntosh's office building. 3 weeks of careful observation had revealed the patterns. Which guards were diligent, which ones barely glanced at ID badges, when the real maintenance crew took their breaks. Today's target was Glenn's private office on the 14th floor. The lock yielded to Sam's specialized tools in seconds. Inside, he moved with practiced efficiency, placing microscopic cameras in strategic locations while his modified tablet copied data from Glenn's computer. Hours of surveillance had confirmed that Glenn conducted his most sensitive business here, away from his public office at the development company. Sam's phone vibrated. A text from Aaron. Status? In position. You'll have eyes and ears by tonight. The reply came quickly. Good. Watch for anything connecting him to the Riverton Syndicate. Sam remembered the briefing. The Riverton Syndicate specialized in laundering money through real estate deals, using legitimate businesses as fronts for their operation. Glenn's pattern of property acquisitions had caught Aaron's attention. Too many deals done too quickly, with cash buyers materializing out of nowhere. Across town, Casey Vogel sat in her car outside Nina's favorite cafe, her hands tight on the steering wheel. She hadn't spoken to her brother Aaron in months, not since their fight about his business practices. But what she'd overheard yesterday in the estate's garden room changed everything. Nina's voice had carried clearly through the open window. Once the transfer is complete, we'll need to move quickly. Glenn's buyers are getting impatient. The syndicate doesn't like waiting, Glenn had replied. But the payoff will be worth it. Your in-laws' precious estate will be carved up and sold before anyone realizes what's happening. Casey had slipped away unnoticed, her mind racing. Despite their differences, she couldn't let Nina destroy her family's legacy. Now, watching Nina emerge from the cafe, Casey reached for her phone. "Aaron? We need to talk." "It's about Nina and Glenn." Aaron's office occupied the top floor of an unmarked building downtown, purchased through a shell corporation. Here, surrounded by screens displaying real-time data from his various operations, he orchestrated his empire's expansion. Today, he studied satellite images of a prime piece of waterfront property. The environmental survey came back clean, Derek reported, spreading documents across Aaron's desk. "We can proceed with the next phase." "Leak the information through the usual channels," Aaron instructed. "Make sure Glenn's people hear about supposed contamination issues driving down the price. He won't be able to resist." "And the authorities?" "They'll receive an anonymous tip about suspicious financial activities once Glenn commits to the purchase." "The timing has to be perfect." Derek nodded, understanding the precision required. "I'll coordinate with our contacts at the federal level. They've been looking for a way into the Riverton Syndicate for months." "Excellent. Now, about that other matter." Their discussion was interrupted by Casey's arrival. Aaron's sister looked nervous, but determined as she described the conversation she'd overheard. "They're working with criminals, Aaron. Real ones. I know we've had our differences, but this is bigger than that." Aaron studied his sister's face, seeing the genuine concern there. "Thank you for telling me. I know it wasn't easy coming here. What are you going to do?" "Watch," Aaron said, turning to one of his screens. "Glenn just took the bait." The screen showed real-time footage from Sam's surveillance. Glenn sat at his desk, excitement visible on his face as he reviewed documents about the waterfront property. "This is perfect," Glenn spoke into his phone. "The environmental issues are driving away other buyers. We can acquire it for pennies on the dollar." "And the syndicate's money?" Nina's voice came through clearly. "Already in place. By this time next week, we'll control the entire waterfront district." Aaron smiled coldly. They never considered why such valuable property would become available so suddenly, or why the environmental concerns weren't publicized earlier. "It's a trap," Casey realized. "One they're walking into willingly." Aaron pressed a button on his desk phone. "Sam, is everything in place?" "Federal agents are standing by." Sam's voice crackled through the speaker. "They'll move as soon as the transaction clears." The next few days passed in a blur of activity. Glenn mobilized his resources, rushing to close the deal before other buyers could discover the property's true value. Aaron watched through Sam's surveillance as Glenn made call after call, growing more excited as the pieces fell into place. Finally, on a crisp morning, Glenn signed the final papers. Within hours, federal agents swarmed the property, arresting known members of the Riverton Syndicate who'd arrived to inspect their latest acquisition. Glenn himself barely escaped, his car speeding away minutes before the raids began. In his office, Aaron watched the chaos unfold on multiple screens. Casey stood beside him, her expression a mixture of awe and concern as they watched Glenn's empire begin to crumble. "This is just the beginning," Aaron said, his voice carrying the weight of promised vengeance. "Glenn's escaped for now, but he's lost his credibility with the syndicate. More importantly, he's lost their money." "What about Nina?" Casey asked, glancing at another screen showing their sister-in-law pacing in her study, phone pressed to her ear. "She'll realize soon enough." Aaron's smile held no warmth. "Glenn's not answering her calls. The news about the raid will break within the hour. By tonight, she'll understand exactly how badly they've miscalculated." Derek entered the office, his expression triumphant. "It's done. The feds found exactly what we planted. Documents linking the property purchase to known syndicate operations. Glenn's name is all over them. And our involvement? Untraceable. As far as anyone can prove, an anonymous tipster alerted authorities to suspicious activity. The evidence stands on its own." Aaron nodded, satisfaction evident in his posture. He'd spent years learning patience, mastering the art of the long game. Now, watching his carefully laid plans unfold, that patience was paying off. The news broke exactly as planned. Local stations interrupted regular programming with breaking news about the raid. Financial networks began reporting on Glenn McIntosh's apparent connections to organized crime. Social media exploded with speculation and rumor. Nina's desperate calls continued throughout the day, each one going straight to Glenn's voicemail. Aaron monitored her movements through the house security system he'd quietly upgraded months ago. He watched her panic grow as more details emerged, as her carefully constructed plans began falling apart. "Mr. Mathis," his assistant's voice came through the intercom. "Your father is on line 1. Aaron picked up the phone, keeping his voice carefully neutral. "Father, have you seen the news?" Roy Mathis demanded. "Glenn McIntosh. They're saying he's involved with criminals, that he's been laundering money through real estate deals." "I'm watching it now," Aaron replied calmly. Shocking development. Nina's not answering her phone. She was close to Glenn, advised us to trust him with certain investments. Roy's voice trailed off, the first hint of doubt creeping in. "I'm sure she'll have an explanation," Aaron said, watching Nina's increasingly frantic movements on his security feed. "Perhaps we should call a family meeting to discuss these developments." After ending the call, Aaron turned to Casey. "Thank you for your help. It means more than you know." Casey studied her brother's face, seeing past the cold exterior to the hurt and betrayal beneath. "They try to take everything from you. They failed." Aaron's voice carried absolute certainty. "Now they'll learn what that failure costs." As night fell over the city, Aaron stood at his office window, watching lights flicker on across the skyline. Behind him, screens continued monitoring the aftermath of the day's events. News reports detailed the scope of the federal investigation. Financial analysts speculated about the impact on various development projects. Social media buzzed with theories and accusations. Nina had finally left the house, driving erratically toward the outskirts of town. Aaron knew where she was headed, a small executive airport where Glenn kept a private plane. But that avenue of escape had already been closed. Anonymous tips to aviation authorities about potential drug trafficking had grounded all private flights. "Sir," Sam's voice came through the secure line. "Glenn's been spotted at the Marina Heights Hotel. Want me to maintain surveillance?" "Keep your distance," Aaron instructed. "Let him think he's found a safe haven. Tomorrow, we move to Phase 2. Casey, who had stayed to help monitor the situation, looked up from her tablet. "The family lawyers are calling an emergency meeting for tomorrow morning. They're concerned about Nina's involvement with Glenn." Perfect timing. Aaron turned from the window, his expression resolute. By tomorrow afternoon, Nina will realize that losing the estate is the least of her concerns. Derek, returning from coordinating with federal contacts, added another piece to the puzzle. "The syndicate's not happy. My sources say they're asking questions about Glenn's recent activities. They don't appreciate the attention he's brought. Make sure certain details find their way to the right people," Aaron instructed. "I want the syndicate to know exactly how much money they lost today and who's responsible." The pieces were falling into place exactly as planned. Glenn was isolated, his criminal connections exposed. Nina's carefully cultivated influence over the family was crumbling. Most importantly, neither of them realized that this was just the opening move in Aaron's broader strategy. He learned from years of business dealings that true victory required more than simply defeating your opponents. It required destroying their ability to retaliate, eliminating their support systems, and ensuring they could never threaten you again. As midnight approached, Aaron reviewed the day's developments with his core team. Security feeds showed Nina had returned home, her earlier panic replaced by a cold determination that Aaron recognized all too well. She was planning something desperate. "Increase surveillance," he ordered. "I want to know everyone she contacts, every move she makes. She's dangerous when cornered." "Like someone else I know," Casey observed quietly. Aaron's slight smile acknowledged the comparison. "The difference is I planned for every contingency. Nina and Glenn thought they could steal my birthright through manipulation and deceit. Tomorrow, they'll begin to understand exactly who they're dealing with." The first phase of his plan had succeeded beyond expectations. Glenn's reputation was in tatters, his criminal connections exposed. Nina's influence over the family was weakening. But Aaron knew better than to celebrate too early. Experience had taught him that wounded opponents were often the most dangerous. As his team dispersed for the night, Aaron remained in his office, reviewing security footage and updating contingency plans. The next few days would be critical. Nina and Glenn would be desperate, looking for any way to salvage their situation. He needed to be ready for whatever desperate moves they might attempt. "Your father's estate," Casey said from the doorway, preparing to leave. "Was it worth all this?" Aaron looked up from his screens, his expression unreadable. "This stopped being about the estate the moment they decided to betray me. Now it's about justice. And justice," he smiled coldly, "is something I've become very good at delivering." With that declaration, the first act of Aaron's revenge drew to a close. The trap had been sprung, the initial blow struck. Now came the true test, maintaining control as his enemies thrashed in his web, ensuring each subsequent move brought them closer to their final destruction. The seeds of revenge had been planted, and Aaron would ensure they grew into something his betrayers would never forget. Chapter 4: Burning Bridges. Meredith Carey's phone buzzed at 3 a.m. A text from one of her trusted sources at the financial news desk. "Check your email." Story breaking about Glenn McIntosh. She opened her laptop, scanning the draft article her colleague had sent. The pieces Aaron had provided fit perfectly with her existing investigation into Glenn's activities. Bank records showing transactions with known crime figures. Property deeds connecting Glenn to suspicious development projects. Witness statements about intimidation and threats. "Run it," she typed back. "I'll confirm the additional details." By sunrise, the story dominated financial networks. Glenn McIntosh, respected real estate developer, exposed as a criminal conspirator. His face appeared on screens across the city, accompanied by headlines detailing his connections to organized crime. In his downtown office, Aaron watched the coverage with cold satisfaction. Beside him, Derek reviewed real-time updates on their various operations. "Glenn's major investors are pulling out," Derek reported. "His company's stock is in free fall. The board's calling an emergency meeting to discuss his removal. And Nina, still trying to contact him. Our surveillance shows she hasn't slept. She's made 47 calls since midnight." Aaron nodded, picking up his phone as it vibrated. Roy Mathis's name flashed on the screen. "Son," his father's voice carried an unfamiliar uncertainty. "These reports about Glenn, Nina claims it's all fabricated, that someone's trying to frame him. The evidence seems quite compelling," Aaron replied neutrally. "Perhaps we should review the family's exposure to his ventures." Yes. I've called an emergency meeting with the estate lawyers. Nina's handling of the foundation's investments. I'll be there," Aaron cut in smoothly. "We should examine everything carefully." The meeting never happened. Within hours, Nina launched her counterattack. Photos appeared on major news sites, showing Aaron meeting with known criminals. The images were expertly staged, Glenn's final insurance policy against betrayal. Aaron's phone rang again. This time Meredith Carey. "These photos," she said without preamble. "They're well-crafted, but they won't hold up to scrutiny. Give me 2 hours." "You have one." Aaron turned to Derek. "Begin phase 2. Derek nodded, understanding the signal. Within minutes, press releases went out detailing Aaron's extensive work in affordable housing development. Documents showed how he'd quietly purchased rundown properties, renovated them, and maintained below-market rents for struggling families. Community leaders, prepped in advance, gave interviews praising his contributions. Former tenants shared stories of his generosity during hard times. The narrative shifted. Aaron Mathis, secret philanthropist, versus Glenn McIntosh, exposed criminal. Nina watched her plans crumble from her study in the Mathis estate. Her hands shook as she dialed Glenn's number for the 50th time. "The phone you were trying to reach has been disconnected." She hurled the device across the room, her composure finally breaking. The forged documents meant to destroy Aaron had backfired spectacularly. Now Glenn was unreachable, their accounts frozen, and reporters camped outside her gates. A knock at the door made her jump. Casey stood there, her expression unreadable. "The lawyers are requesting all documents related to the foundation's investments," Casey said. "Father's orders." Nina's eyes narrowed. You've been helping him, haven't you? You tried to destroy my brother." Casey's voice carried none of its usual warmth. Did you really think we wouldn't fight back? Get out of my study? Gladly. But first, Casey moved with unexpected speed, reaching past Nina to grab a leather-bound ledger from the desk. I'll take this. Nina lunged for the book, but Casey was already gone, the sound of her footsteps fading down the hallway. The ledger contained everything: dates, amounts, account numbers for all their illegal transactions. Glenn had insisted on keeping physical records, paranoid about digital trails. In his office, Aaron examined the ledger's contents with growing satisfaction. Each page provided another nail in Nina and Glenn's coffins. This is everything we need, Derek confirmed. The foundation transfers, the offshore accounts, even records of payments to the syndicate. Aaron closed the book carefully. Have copies made. Then arrange a meeting with Nina. The confrontation took place in the estate's library, where their battle had begun. Nina entered with her head high, but Aaron noted the signs of strain: smudged makeup, trembling hands quickly hidden in her pockets. Your choice is simple, Aaron said, placing the ledger on the table between them. Leave town tonight, disappear, or I release everything in this book to the authorities. Nina's laugh held an edge of hysteria. You think I'll run? After everything I've built here? Built? Aaron's voice could have frozen flame. You've built nothing. You wormed your way into my family, manipulated my parents, betrayed my trust. And for what? Money you'll never see. Power you couldn't hold. I built more in 5 years than you did in 20, Nina spat. While you played your secret games with your hidden empire, I made the Mathis name mean something again. No. Aaron stepped closer, his presence filling the room. You destroyed everything you touched, and now you'll pay for it. Is that what you think? Nina's smile turned vicious. I'm not finished yet. Not even close. She turned and strode out, her heels clicking against marble. Aaron watched her go, then picked up his phone. She chose war, he told Derek. Activate everything. Chapter 5. The war escalates. The first attack came at midnight. Aaron's security team detected multiple attempts to breach his company's servers. Amateur work, easily deflected by the defensive systems he'd put in place months ago. They took the bait, his head of cybersecurity reported. They're downloading the decoy files now. Aaron smiled, remembering how carefully they'd crafted those files. False contracts, fake bank statements, manufactured evidence of corruption, all designed to lead Nina and Glenn down exactly the wrong path. The real blow came 3 days later. Meredith hadn't filed a story in 24 hours. Her editor reported her missing. Security footage from her apartment building showed 2 men forcing her into a van. Aaron's phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number, evidence for her life. You have 6 hours. In his private office, Aaron assembled his team. Derek pulled up blueprints of abandoned properties in Glenn's portfolio. Sam Pugh reported on recent movement of known associates. The Marina District warehouse, Sam pointed to a location on the map. Glenn's men were seen moving equipment there yesterday. Serious hardware, guns, communications gear. Security? For men outside, probably more inside. Professional muscle, not street thugs. Aaron studied the layout. Points of entry, loading dock on the south side. Fire escape on the east. Main entrance is watched, but the roof access is minimal. Time to extraction? 3 minutes from breach to vehicle, assuming no complications. Derek looked up from his phone. Local police are wrapped up with a situation downtown. Response time would be at least 15 minutes. We won't need them. Aaron checked his watch. Sam, take your team in through the roof. Derek, coordinate from the van. I'll handle the distraction at the main entrance. Sir, Derek's voice carried rare concern. This is exactly what they want. To draw you out, make you vulnerable. No. Aaron's eyes held dangerous focus. This is what I want. Glenn's desperate enough to make mistakes. This ends tonight. The rescue operation launched timing. As Aaron's car approached the warehouse's main gate, Sam's team was already in position on the roof. Derek monitored police bands from a nondescript van 2 blocks away. Glenn's guards tensed as Aaron stepped out of his car, hands raised. I have what you want. Take me to Glenn. Inside, They led him through dim corridors to a large open space. Meredith sat tied to a chair, bruised but alert. Her eyes widened at Aaron's entrance. Glenn emerged from the shadows, looking haggard. The evidence. All of it. Now. Release her first. You're not in a position to negotiate. Glenn gestured, and one of his men pressed a gun to Meredith's head. Actually, Aaron smiled coldly. I am. The skylight shattered. Sam's team rappelled down, weapons drawn. In the confusion, Aaron moved with practiced efficiency. 2 guards went down before they could react. The third managed to raise his weapon before Derek's shot from the doorway dropped him. Glenn turned to run, but found his path blocked. It's over, Aaron said quietly. You think this changes anything? Glenn's laugh held an edge of madness. Nina's already gone to your parents. Told them everything. How you orchestrated all of this. How you're the real criminal. Let him go, Aaron ordered as Sam's team moved to grab Glenn. He won't get far. Outside. After the medics checked Meredith, Aaron's phone rang. Casey's voice carried tension he hadn't heard before. Aaron, Nina's here at the estate. She's showing father documents, recordings. He's actually listening to her. Stay with them, Aaron instructed. I'm on my way. In the car, Derek reviewed the situation. She's playing her last card. If she can turn your parents against you, she can't. Aaron's voice held absolute certainty. Everything she has is fabricated. Everything I have is real. The difference will become very clear, very soon. The Mathis estate glowed against the night sky as Aaron's car approached. Inside, voices echoed from his father's study. Roy Mathis sat behind his desk, face grave as Nina gestured emphatically at documents spread before him. Don't you see? Nina's voice carried desperate conviction. He's been manipulating everything. The evidence against Glenn, the media stories, all of it carefully orchestrated to destroy us. And these recordings? Roy held up a phone. Of Aaron discussing illegal dealings? Manufactured, Aaron said from the doorway. All heads turned. Just like the photos she leaked to the press. Just like everything else she's shown you. He's lying. Nina started, but Aaron held up a hand. Father, check your phone. I just sent you something interesting. He turned to Nina. Did Glenn tell you he kept a journal? Very detailed. Very incriminating. Nina's face went pale as Roy began reading. Pages of Glenn's private thoughts, detailing every step of their scheme. Their plans to steal the estate, their manipulation of the family, their connections to organized crime. This, Roy looked up, his face ashen. This can't be real. Unlike Nina's evidence, Aaron said quietly, everything in that journal can be verified. Bank records, dates, witnesses. Glenn was very thorough. You're just like him, Nina snarled. A manipulator, a monster. No, Aaron's voice cut through her accusations. I'm what you and Glenn created. You taught me that trust was weakness. That family meant nothing. Now you'll learn exactly how well I absorbed those lessons. Roy stood slowly, his authority reasserting itself. Nina, I think it's time for you to leave. The lawyers will contact you about dissolving your connection to the estate. You can't. I can. I will. Roy's voice held no room for argument. Get out of my house. As security escorted Nina out, Aaron watched from the study window. His phone buzzed with a message from Sam. Glenn's car spotted heading for the airport. Want us to intercept? Let him run, Aaron typed back. He'll find all his accounts frozen, his passports flagged. He has nowhere to go. Casey appeared beside him. It's not over, is it? No. Aaron watched Nina's car disappear through the gates. But the next phase will be very interesting. Chapter 6, Breaking Point. The lawsuit landed on Aaron's desk at precisely 9 a.m. Nina's attorneys had worked through the night, crafting a masterpiece of legal fiction. Allegations of fraud, conspiracy, and criminal enterprise filled 50 pages of carefully worded accusations. She's demanding a full audit of your operations, Derek said, reviewing the documents, plus access to all communication records from the past 5 years. Aaron set the papers aside. She's hoping to find something real among all her fabricated evidence. Give her what she wants. Everything we prepared for exactly this moment. Aaron's smile held no warmth. Let her dig through 5 years of carefully crafted records, all supporting exactly the narrative we want. The media descended like vultures. News vans clogged the streets outside Aaron's office building. Reporters shouted questions about Nina's accusations, Glenn's disappearance, the alleged criminal conspiracy. Inside, Aaron worked. Hour after hour, he reviewed documents, made calls, moved pieces into position. Nina thought she was forcing his hand. In reality, she was playing exactly the role he'd crafted for her. The trial began 3 weeks later. Nina arrived at the courthouse in designer clothes, projecting confidence for the cameras. Her legal team carried boxes of evidence, ready to expose Aaron's alleged crimes. Aaron, dressed in an immaculate suit, nodded politely to reporters but made no statements. Behind his calm exterior, he watched Nina's every move, noting the slight tremor in her hands, the tension around her eyes. In the courtroom, Nina's lawyers presented their case with theatrical flourish. Emails suggesting criminal conspiracy, phone records hinting at illegal dealings, financial documents implying fraud. Aaron's team responded. Each piece of Nina's evidence was dismantled, its fabricated nature exposed through expert testimony and forensic analysis. But the true devastation came during Nina's cross-examination. Mrs. Mathis, Aaron's lead attorney, began. Could you explain this series of transfers from the family foundation to offshore accounts? Nina's composure cracked slightly. Those were legitimate charitable donations. Really? The attorney held up Glenn's ledger. Because Mr. McIntosh's detailed records show something quite different. Hour after hour, the questioning continued. Nina's testimony began contradicting itself. Her carefully constructed lies unraveled under relentless scrutiny. In the gallery, Roy and Bernadette watched their daughter-in-law's destruction with growing horror. The woman they'd trusted, whom they'd chosen over their own son, revealed as a calculating manipulator. The final blow came when Glenn was brought into court in handcuffs. Caught trying to flee the country with false papers, he'd agreed to testify in exchange for consideration during sentencing. Glenn's testimony destroyed what remained of Nina's credibility. He detailed their entire scheme, the manipulation of the family, the plans to sell off the estate, the connections to organized crime. Nina sat rigid in her chair as Glenn spoke, her face a mask of fury and despair. When he finished, she stood abruptly. "This is all lies," she shouted. "Aaron orchestrated everything. He's the real criminal. He's—" Mrs. Mathis, the judge's voice cracked like a whip. "Control yourself, or you'll be held in contempt." After the day's session, Roy and Bernadette approached Aaron outside the courtroom. "Son," Roy's voice carried the weight of years of regret. "We were wrong. About everything. We should have trusted you," Bernadette added, tears in her eyes. Aaron accepted their apologies with a gracious nod, playing the role of forgiving son perfectly. Inside, he felt nothing but cold satisfaction. Their recognition of their mistake was just another piece in his larger plan. That evening, Aaron found Nina waiting in their home. She stood in his study, a glass of wine in her trembling hand. "Can I pack your things?" Aaron asked mildly. "Come to understand," Nina's voice was raw. "When did you start planning this? How long have you been orchestrating our destruction?" "The moment you and Glenn decided to betray me." Aaron moved to his desk, pressing a button to activate hidden recordings. "I gave you both everything. Trust, loyalty, love. You taught me those were weaknesses to be exploited. So this is your revenge? Destroying us in court, turning my life into a public spectacle?" "No." Aaron's voice held no emotion. "This is justice. You try to take everything from me. Now you'll spend the rest of your life with nothing. No money, no power, no respect. Just the knowledge that you brought this on yourself. I'll fight you." Nina's eyes blazed with desperate defiance. "I'll never stop fighting. You've already lost." Aaron gestured to the door. "Security will escort you out. Consider this your final warning. Leave with whatever dignity you have left, or I'll ensure you leave in handcuffs." Nina's hand tightened around the wine glass. For a moment, Aaron thought she might throw it at him. Instead, she set it down with deliberate care. "You think you've won," she whispered, her voice filled with venom. But you've become exactly what you claim to hate. A manipulator. A destroyer. No, Aaron's response carried absolute finality. I've become what I needed to be to deliver justice. The difference between us, Nina, is that you destroyed for greed. I destroy to right wrongs. Two security guards appeared in the doorway. Nina straightened her spine, gathering the remnants of her dignity around her like armor. This isn't over, Aaron. Actually, it is. He turned his back on her, a final dismissal. Goodbye, Nina. The sound of her heels clicking down the hallway faded, followed by the distant thud of the front door. Aaron waited until his security team confirmed she'd left the property before allowing himself a moment of reflection. His phone buzzed, a message from Derek. Glenn's attorney is pushing for a plea deal. The DA wants your input. No deals, Aaron typed back. He faces everything he's done. Another message, this time from Casey. Father's calling a family meeting tomorrow. Says it's about making things right. Aaron smiled coldly. Everything was falling into place exactly as he'd planned. Nina's desperate attempts to turn his parents against him had backfired spectacularly, pushing them to finally see the truth about her manipulation. In his study, he reviewed the security feeds showing Nina getting into her car, her usual grace replaced by barely controlled fury. She'd lost everything. Her position in society, her influence over his family, her carefully constructed facade of respectability. But Aaron knew better than to underestimate her. Even now, "Sir," his head of security's voice came through the intercom. "Mrs. Mathis is headed toward the Marina District. Want us to maintain surveillance?" "Keep your distance," Aaron instructed. "She'll try something desperate soon. I want to know exactly what it is." The next morning, Roy Mathis stood before the assembled family in the estate's main drawing room. Bernadette sat beside him, her face showing the strain of recent revelations. "What happened to this family was my fault," Roy began, his voice heavy with regret. "I let an outsider turn me against my own son. I was blind to manipulation, deaf to truth." Aaron sat silently, watching his father's uncharacteristic display of humility. Beside him, Casey squeezed his hand briefly, a gesture of solidarity between siblings who'd weathered the storm together. "The estate will be returned to its rightful heir," Roy continued. "Aaron, you've proven yourself not just capable but worthy. More than that, you've shown wisdom I failed to recognize." "Thank you, Father," Aaron responded simply, playing his role perfectly. The prodigal son, gracious in victory. But even as his family moved to embrace him, to rebuild their fractured bonds, Aaron's mind worked on the next phase of his plan. Nina was still free, still dangerous. Glenn's criminal connections remained a potential threat. His phone vibrated, Sam Pugh's number. "Sir, movement at the Marina warehouse. Nina's been meeting with some of Glenn's old associates. They're planning something." "Good," Aaron replied softly. "Let them plan. Let them think they still have cards to play." He ended the call, turning back to his family's attempts at reconciliation. Let them believe this was the end, that justice had been served and order restored. Aaron knew better. The final act of this drama was still to come, and he would direct every moment of it. As night fell over the city, Aaron stood in his office, watching the lights of Nina's car disappear into the darkness. She was running, but not escaping. Every move she made now would only tighten the noose he'd spent months preparing. The estate was his again. His family had seen through Nina's deceptions. Glenn faced justice for his crimes. But Aaron had learned never to celebrate victory until every threat was eliminated, every enemy neutralized completely. His phone lit up with a final report for the day. Nina accessed her emergency accounts, started moving money offshore. Glenn's associates are mobilizing. "Perfect," Aaron typed back. Everything proceeds as planned. He closed his laptop, satisfaction coursing through him. Let them plot and scheme. Let them think they still had hope of survival. Aaron had prepared for every contingency, anticipated every desperate move. The war wasn't over, but the outcome was already decided. Nina and Glenn had taught him valuable lessons about trust, betrayal, and power. Now they would learn just how well he'd mastered those lessons. As security locked down the estate for the night, Aaron reviewed the files detailing his enemies' dwindling resources, their desperate attempts to salvage something from the wreckage of their schemes. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new battles. But Aaron Mathis was ready. They had created this version of him. Ruthless, unforgiving, unstoppable. Now they would face the consequences of their creation. The end of Act 2 approached. Not with a bang, but with the quiet certainty of inevitable destruction. The pieces were set, the trap ready to spring. All that remained was to watch his enemies make their final, fatal mistakes. Chapter 7. The Fall of Nina Ortega. The courtroom fell silent as the jury foreman stood. Nina Ortega Mathis gripped the edge of the defense table, her knuckles white against the polished wood. Behind her, the gallery packed with reporters leaned forward, pens poised. On the charge of conspiracy in the first degree, we find the defendant guilty. Nina's face remained frozen in a mask of defiance. On the charge of fraud, we find the defendant guilty. A small tremor ran through her shoulders. On the charge of perjury, we find the defendant guilty. Aaron watched from his position near the prosecution table, his expression betraying nothing of the satisfaction coursing through him. Beside him, Derek made notes on his tablet, documenting each verdict for their records. The judge's voice cut through the murmurs. Mrs. Ortega Mathis, please rise for sentencing. Nina stood, her designer suit unable to hide how much weight she'd lost during the trial. Her eyes locked onto Aaron's, burning with hatred. This court has reviewed the evidence presented, the severity of your crimes, and your complete lack of remorse, the judge began. Your actions show a calculated pattern of deception, manipulation, and criminal behavior that has destroyed lives and betrayed sacred trusts. The judge paused, reviewing his notes. Additionally, your attempts to obstruct justice and your continued false accusations against others demonstrate that you remain a threat to society. Nina's attorney started to speak, but the judge cut him off with a sharp gesture. Therefore, it is the judgment of this court that you be sentenced to 25 years in federal prison, without possibility of parole. The gallery erupted in gasps and furious scribbling. Nina swayed slightly, but remained standing. In the adjoining courtroom, Glenn McIntosh's sentencing was already underway. His cooperation had earned him no mercy. His extensive criminal history, combined with the new charges, guaranteed he would spend the rest of his life behind bars. Aaron left the courthouse without speaking to reporters. In his car, Derek reviewed their next steps. The estate transfer paperwork is ready, Derek reported. The renovation plans for the community center have been approved. The PR team is prepared to announce the initiative. Good. Aaron studied the message on his phone, a confirmation that Nina had been processed into the federal detention center. And the other matter? The foundation's funds have been recovered. The offshore accounts are being liquidated. Nina and Glenn's victims will be compensated fully. Aaron nodded, satisfaction coursing through him. Schedule a meeting with the architectural team. I want the community center operational within 6 months. The Mathis estate underwent a transformation over the following weeks. The formal gardens gave way to accessible green spaces. The ballroom became a multi-purpose community hall. The library expanded to include educational resources for local students. Casey joined Aaron in overseeing the renovations, their shared vision healing old wounds between them. You were right, she said one afternoon, reviewing construction plans. About everything, Nina, Glenn, all of it. They underestimated both of us, Aaron replied. A mistake they'll have years in prison to reflect on. The maximum security women's facility rose from the desert like a monument to lost freedom. Aaron passed through multiple security checkpoints, his movements tracked by cameras and armed guards. Nina waited in the visitation room, orange jumpsuit replacing designer clothes, institutional ID badge where diamonds once sparkled. Her eyes narrowed as Aaron sat across from her. Come to gloat. Her voice rasped from disuse. Come to deliver a message. Aaron's tone carried no emotion. You thought you could take everything from me. Instead, you gave me the strength to become unstoppable. You destroyed my life. No, Aaron stood, looking down at her. You destroyed your own life. I simply ensured you faced the consequences. He turned to leave, then paused. Goodbye, Nina. Enjoy the next 25 years. Her scream of rage followed him down the corridor, but Aaron didn't look back. Some chapters needed to end definitively. Chapter 8. New Beginnings. The grand opening of the Mathis Community Center drew hundreds of local residents. Aaron stood back, watching families explore the facilities, children discovering the new playground, seniors gathering in the recreation areas. Meredith Carey appeared beside him, notepad in hand. Quite a transformation. Both the estate and its owner, Aaron replied, studying her face. The bruises from her captivity had faded, but the experience had left its mark on both of them. Your PR team must be thrilled. Ruthless businessman transforms family estate into community haven. The headlines write themselves. You're not here for a story. Meredith's smile held warmth that had been growing between them since the rescue. No, I'm not. Their relationship developed gradually, built on shared experiences and mutual understanding. Meredith's sharp intelligence matched Aaron's strategic mind. Her fearless pursuit of truth complemented his calculating nature. The official transfer of the estate took place in Roy's study. As Aaron signed the documents, his father placed a hand on his shoulder. You've transformed our legacy, Roy said quietly. Made it something greater than we imagined. I learned from experience, Aaron replied. Power means nothing without purpose. Bernadette dabbed at her eyes with a handkerchief. We were so wrong about you, about everything. The past is settled, Aaron said firmly. We focus on the future now. That future unfolded in unexpected ways. The community center became a model for similar projects across the city. Aaron's business empire, once built on ruthless acquisition, redirected its resources toward urban renewal and affordable housing. You've changed, Casey observed one evening, watching her brother review proposals for a new development. I've evolved, Aaron corrected. Everything that happened taught me valuable lessons about power, justice, and responsibility. And revenge? Revenge was necessary, but it's not enough to destroy enemies. True victory comes from building something stronger from the ruins. The media celebrated Aaron's transformation, but few understood the steel beneath the philanthropy. His business dealings remained sharp, his decisions absolute. Those who crossed him still found themselves facing implacable opposition. Late one night, as Aaron worked in his office, his security team delivered an envelope that had been left at the gate. Inside, a single sheet of paper carried a typed message. This isn't over. Aaron placed the note in his safe, a cold smile playing at his lips. Let them come. He learned how to handle threats. Meredith found him on the estate's terrace, overlooking the city lights. Another threat? Another opportunity, Aaron replied, drawing her close. Whoever sent it doesn't understand. I'm not the same man they think they're targeting. No, Meredith agreed. You're much more dangerous now. Chapter 9. The Endgame. The investigation into the threatening note led Aaron's team through a maze of connections. Sam Pugh's surveillance network identified unusual movements among former syndicate members. Derek's legal sources reported whispers of revenge plots. They're gathering resources, Sam reported during a secure briefing. What's left of Glenn's old crew, trying to rebuild their operation. Aaron studied the surveillance photos spread across his desk. They think they can reclaim their territory now that Glenn's gone. Want us to shut them down? No. Aaron's smile held no warmth. Let them gather. Let them plot. When they move, we'll be ready. The trap took 3 weeks to prepare. Aaron leaked information about a major development project, promising profits that would attract desperate criminals. His team seeded rumors about weak security, easy access. The syndicate couldn't resist. Their forces gathered in an abandoned warehouse, planning their attack on Aaron's operation. They never realized they were being watched, recorded, tracked. Federal teams are in position, Derek reported via secure line. Local police have been coordinated. All exits are covered. Aaron watched from his command center as thermal imaging showed the criminals' movements. Begin the operation. The raid struck with overwhelming force. FBI tactical teams breached from multiple points. Local SWAT units covered escape routes. Within minutes, the entire syndicate leadership was in custody. Send copies of everything to the prosecutors, Aaron instructed. I want no possibility of plea deals or reduced sentences. As dawn broke over the city, Aaron stood in his office, reviewing reports of the operation's success. The syndicate was finished, its leaders facing decades in prison. The last threat to his empire had been eliminated. Casey arrived with coffee and congratulations. It's really over now? This chapter is, Aaron replied. There will always be new challenges, new opponents. But they'll think twice before targeting us now. The transformation of Aaron's empire continued. The Mathis Community Center expanded its programs. New developments provided affordable housing while generating solid profits. His reputation grew as a businessman who combined shrewd deals with social responsibility. Meredith covered the story of the syndicate's downfall, her article exposing the full scope of their criminal enterprise without revealing Aaron's role in their destruction. Their relationship deepened, built on mutual respect and understanding. You've won, she told him one evening. Completely and absolutely. Victory isn't just about winning, Aaron replied. It's about ensuring you never have to fight the same battle twice. The final piece fell into place during a sunset ceremony on the estate's renovated grounds. Aaron and Meredith exchanged vows before family and close friends. Casey stood as witness, her newborn daughter sleeping peacefully in Roy's arms. Later, at the reception, Aaron stepped away to take a call from his security team. The last syndicate leader had accepted a plea deal, guaranteeing a life sentence in exchange for information about other criminal enterprises. Returning to the celebration, Aaron found his family gathered on the terrace. The city spread out before them, its lights twinkling like stars. This was his domain now, not just the buildings and businesses, but the power to shape its future. Casey bounced her daughter gently, smiling as the baby grabbed at her necklace. Looking forward to teaching her all about the family business? About responsibility, Aaron corrected. About using power wisely. Meredith slipped her arm through his. And about not taking betrayal lightly? That lesson, Aaron's smile held both warmth and warning, comes naturally in this family. The fireworks began, drawing gasps of appreciation from the gathered guests. As colors exploded across the night sky, Aaron surveyed his domain. He had won not just victory, but peace. Not just revenge, but redemption. The game was over. The players who had tried to destroy him were gone, their schemes and threats reduced to cautionary tales. Aaron Mathis stood triumphant, his empire secure, his legacy assured. In the end, his enemies had given him an invaluable gift. They had forced him to become stronger, smarter, more ruthless than they could imagine. Now that strength would serve a greater purpose, protecting what he had built and those he had chosen to trust. The fireworks reached their finale, filling the sky with light and power. Aaron pulled Meredith closer, feeling Casey's presence beside them, aware of his parents watching proudly. This was real victory, not just destroying enemies, but building something worthy from the ashes of their defeat. The night wrapped around them like a cloak of authority. Aaron Mathis, once underestimated and betrayed, now stood as an immovable force. His enemies were vanquished, his family restored, his future secure. Let others learn from his story. Let them understand that betrayal carried consequences, that power belonged to those strong enough to wield it justly. Aaron had learned these lessons through fire and pain. Now he would teach them to a new generation, ensuring his legacy lived on through those worthy of carrying it forward. Epilogue, 10 years later. The Mathis Empire had grown beyond recognition in the decade following Nina and Glenn's downfall. What began as Aaron's hidden real estate ventures had evolved into a multinational corporation specializing in urban development and community renewal. The original Mathis estate, now the flagship community center, served as a model for similar projects across 3 continents. Aaron Mathis stood in his penthouse office, reviewing holographic projections of his latest development projects. At 45, his presence commanded even more authority than in his younger years. Success had refined his edges without dulling them, adding gravitas to his ruthless efficiency. The Shanghai development is ahead of schedule, Derek Avila reported, still serving as Aaron's closest advisor and head legal counsel. A touch of gray at his temples was the only sign of passing years. Local authorities are impressed with our community integration programs. And the security concerns? Handled. Derek's smile held the same sharp edge it had during their takedown of Nina and Glenn. The triads made some noise about protection fees. Sam's team reminded them what happened to the last criminal organization that crossed Mathis International. The Riverton Syndicate's destruction had become legendary in criminal circles. Even a decade later, rumors circulated about how Aaron had orchestrated their downfall. The truth, known only to his inner circle, was far more impressive than the rumors. A gentle knock interrupted their discussion. Meredith Mathis entered, still carrying herself with the confident grace that had first caught Aaron's attention years ago. Marriage and motherhood hadn't softened her investigative instincts. She now ran the city's most respected investigative journalism network. Your daughter, she announced with a mix of pride and exasperation, just hacked her school's grading system. Aaron raised an eyebrow. To change her grades? To expose security flaws in their network. She submitted a detailed report to the administration. That's my girl. Aaron's smile held genuine warmth, a rare expression reserved for family. How did they respond? They're offering her an internship with their IT department. At 9 years old, Victoria Mathis had inherited her father's strategic mind and her mother's relentless pursuit of truth. Already, she showed signs of being a force to be reckoned with. Casey swept into the office, her own daughter Emma in tow. At 13, Emma had grown into her role as Victoria's protective older cousin. The girls shared a conspiratorial look that reminded Aaron of his plotting sessions with Casey during the war with Nina. Board meeting in 10 minutes, Casey reminded them. As Chief Operations Officer of Mathis International, she'd proven herself as formidable in legitimate business as she had been during their revenge plot. The Mathis Consortium's boardroom occupied the top floor of their headquarters tower. Once monthly, Aaron gathered his most trusted advisors to review operations and address potential threats. Sam Pugh, now Director of Global Security, began his briefing. His network of informants and surveillance systems had expanded worldwide, ensuring no threat to the Mathis empire went undetected. Nina's up for parole next month, he reported, pulling up prison surveillance footage. She's maintained good behavior, participated in rehabilitation programs. Denial recommended, Aaron stated flatly. Already arranged. The parole board will receive detailed evidence of her continued attempts to contact criminal associates. Glenn McIntosh had died in prison 3 years earlier, his empire nothing but a cautionary tale. Nina, however, remained a potential threat, even after a decade behind bars. Aaron had ensured her communications were monitored, her visitor list restricted, her every move tracked. What about the Moscow situation? Aaron shifted topics smoothly. Resolved, Sam replied. The oligarch attempting to undermine our development project, there had an unfortunate revelation about his tax history. Russian authorities were very interested in our evidence. The meeting continued, each report demonstrating how thoroughly Aaron had consolidated and legitimized his power. The ruthlessness that had driven his revenge now served to protect his family's legacy and their numerous charitable initiatives. Later that evening, the extended Mathis family gathered for dinner at the estate. Roy and Bernadette, now in their 70s, doted on their granddaughters. The community center's main operations had closed for the day, but the sounds of evening programs still drifted through the grounds. The foundation approved funding for 3 new scholarship programs, Bernadette announced proudly. Though retired from active management, she remained involved in the charitable aspects of the family business. Victoria's class is participating in the coding workshop next week, Meredith added. She's already developed 2 apps to help younger students with math. Aaron watched his daughter explain her latest project to her grandfather, her hands moving animatedly. Roy listened with rapt attention, occasionally glancing at Aaron with pride and something like awe at what their family had become. After dinner, Aaron found Casey in their father's old study, now in formal family room. Remember when we planned Nina's takedown in here? She asked, nostalgia coloring her voice. Hard to forget. You risked everything to help me. You risked everything to protect our family's legacy. Casey gestured to a photo on the wall, the entire family at the community center's 10th anniversary celebration. Look what that risk built. The Mathis empire had indeed grown beyond mere business success. Their developments revitalized struggling communities. Their foundation funded education and healthcare initiatives. Even their security operations, still ruthlessly efficient, focused on protecting the vulnerable from exploitation. Aaron's phone buzzed, a secure message from Sam. The latest surveillance report on Nina showed she'd attempted to contact an old associate from the Riverton Syndicate. The attempt had been intercepted, the associate reminded of the consequences of engaging with her. Still keeping tabs? Casey asked, noting his expression. Always. Aaron's voice held the same steel it had carried during their revenge plot. Power isn't just about acquisition. It's about maintenance, protection. A commotion from the family room drew their attention. Victoria was demonstrating her latest app to Emma, their laughter echoing through the house. The sound represented everything Aaron had fought to build, a secure future for the next generation of the Mathis family. The next morning, Aaron visited one of their affordable housing developments. Residents greeted him with respect tinged with wariness. His reputation for benevolent leadership was always shadowed by whispers of what happened to those who betrayed him. In his car, reviewing project reports, Aaron received another secure message. Nina's latest psychiatric evaluation recommended against parole, citing unresolved tendencies toward manipulation and deceit. The parole board would receive the report next week. Sir, his driver interrupted. Mrs. Mathis asked me to remind you about Victoria's presentation at the tech conference this afternoon. Aaron smiled slightly. His daughter was unveiling a project she'd developed for the community center, a learning platform that adapted to each user's needs. At 9, she already showed signs of combining his strategic thinking with Meredith's social consciousness. The tech conference occupied the convention center downtown. Victoria commanded the stage with natural confidence, demonstrating her platform to an audience of industry leaders and educators. Aaron watched from the wings, reflecting on how different his daughter's path was from his own. She's incredible, Meredith whispered, squeezing his hand. All the strength without the scars. That was the point, Aaron replied softly. Everything we did, everything we built, it was for this. For them. Later that week, Aaron received a detailed report on Nina's prison activities over the past decade. Despite her outward compliance, she'd made multiple subtle attempts to rebuild connections with criminal elements. Each attempt had been detected and neutralized by Sam's team. Should we adjust surveillance protocols? Sam asked during their security briefing. No. Let her continue thinking she has some privacy. It makes tracking her intentions easier. The Mathis Empire's security systems had evolved far beyond what they'd used during the revenge plot. AI algorithms monitored communications patterns. Behavioral analysis flagged potential threats before they materialized. Aaron's paranoia had matured into comprehensive risk management. During a charity gala at the community center, Aaron watched Victoria and Emma help younger children with computer tutorials. The sight reinforced his conviction about maintaining eternal vigilance. His daughter would inherit not just wealth and power, but the wisdom to protect it. Mr. Mathis, a young developer, approached him nervously. I wanted to thank you for the mentorship program. It's changed my life. Aaron nodded graciously. The mentorship initiative had been Victoria's idea, using the family's resources to help promising students from disadvantaged backgrounds. His daughter understood instinctively what had taken him years to learn. Power was most secure when it lifted others up rather than just crushing opposition. That night, reviewing security footage from Nina's prison, Aaron noticed a pattern. Her recent good behavior coincided with increased correspondence with a former cellmate who had been released 6 months ago. A quick check revealed the ex-cellmate had connections to what remained of Glenn's old network. Arrange an accident for the ex-cellmate, Aaron instructed Sam. Nothing fatal. Just enough to remind everyone that retirement from criminal activity should be permanent. The next day brought news that the parole board had unanimously denied Nina's application. She would serve at least 5 more years before being eligible again. Aaron had the video of her reaction archived, a reminder that some threats required perpetual management. As his empire grew, Aaron had learned to balance ruthlessness with wisdom. The skills that had served his revenge now protected a legacy of positive change. His network of informants and allies helped guard not just his family's interests, but the communities they'd helped build. Victoria's 10th birthday party gathered the extended family and close allies. Derek brought his son, who shared Victoria's interest in computer security. Sam's twins demonstrated martial arts, moves they'd learned in their protection training. The next generation of the Mathis inner circle was already forming. Amazing how much has changed, Casey observed, watching the children play. Remember when this place was just about power and appearances? Now it's about power and purpose, Aaron corrected. The appearance takes care of itself. The community center had expanded again, adding medical facilities and job training programs. The Mathis name, once associated with old money and subtle corruption, now stood for innovation and community development. Yet beneath the philanthropic surface, Aaron's iron control remained absolute. Late that night, after the party, Aaron received a final security update. Nina's ex-cellmate had survived a mysterious car accident, sustaining injuries that would require months of rehabilitation. All electronic records of her connection to Nina had vanished from prison databases. "Dad?" Victoria's voice came from his study doorway. "Can you help me with something?" Aaron set aside the security report, turning his full attention to his daughter. She showed him a program she was developing, a security system for the community center's new computer lab. "See? It flags suspicious behavior patterns and restricts access automatically." Very impressive. Aaron studied the code, noting how she'd incorporated predictive analysis. "You understand why security matters so much?" "Because what we build is worth protecting," Victoria replied with certainty that made him proud. "And because some people only understand strength." Aaron hugged his daughter, marveling at how she'd absorbed the family's hard-earned wisdom while maintaining her own moral compass. The next generation would face its own challenges, but they would face them with both power and principle. As Victoria headed to bed, Aaron stood at his office window, surveying his domain. The city had transformed under his influence, becoming something greater than even his revenge-driven younger self could have imagined. Yet he maintained the same vigilance, the same readiness to destroy threats to his family's legacy. Meredith found him there, wrapping her arms around him from behind. "Still watching for enemies in the shadows?" "Always." Aaron turned to face her. "But now we have so much more to protect, and better ways to protect it." The next morning brought reports of another failed attempt by Nina to extend her influence beyond prison walls. Aaron reviewed the details with the same careful attention he'd given to planning her downfall years ago. Some habits, some responsibilities never changed. The Mathis empire had evolved, but its core remained the same. Power, properly wielded, could build as well as destroy. Justice required constant vigilance. And family, real family, bound by loyalty rather than just blood, was worth any price to protect. Aaron Mathis had won his war for revenge, but the true victory lay in what he'd built from that triumph. His children would inherit not just wealth and influence, but the wisdom to use it well and the strength to protect it. The game would continue with new players, but the Mathis legacy was secure in hands both powerful and wise. And there you have it. Another story comes to an end. What did you think? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoy this story, consider joining our community by subscribing. It means the world to us. For more stories like this one, check out the recommended videos on screen. And I'll see you there.